Yes, so welcome to those of you watching live and those also in the recording. Today I'm going to give a short run through of the interoperability platform within Elixir. In terms of the structure, I'll do just one slide on sort of what is Elixir, a slide on Hub Tech Team for those who aren't familiar, an introduction on the interoperability platform itself and how it fits into the wider infrastructure, and then also some of the things within the interoperability platform. So I'll do some examples of interoperability stories, the recommended interoperability resources, the Fair Service Framework, Elixir Fair RDM Knowledge System, and also talk about the plans for the future of the interoperability platform. So Elixir Europe, it's an intergovernmental organization that brings together life science resources. So this is sort of something that we want to coordinate as bioinformatics resources from across Europe as a single infrastructure. So things like databases, software tools, training materials, compute resources, interoperability resources, and data management support. So really trying to join forces for the benefit of bioinformaticians working across Europe and beyond. Where the tech team sits in. So I'm part of the tech team. As David said, I'm the program manager for the data interoperability platforms. And the technical team, led by Peter McCallum as Chief Technical Officer, we oversee the sort of operation and development of the Elixir services at the European level. We help interface between the nodes, as they're called, between each of the member states, and also the international activities. We provide technical coordination support. We're co-located at the EMBL EBI in Hingston in the UK, but we do not run the Elixir services directly. So each of our nodes provide their own suite of services, and we provide the coordinating activity across those. And all of my colleagues are listed here along with their titles and pictures. Just a single slide on kind of the Elixir structure. So the Elixir is structured around platforms and communities. So at the center, we have our five platforms, which this is the last in the series of webinars on the platforms. But we also have a number of communities that have either technical or scientific domain focus. And this helps connect up both the things that we develop and coordinate with the actual on-the-ground research that's being done across Europe and beyond. There are 5 platforms within Elixir, and today I'll be talking about the interoperability one in particular. So the Elixir Interoperability Platform, so its mission is to help people and machines discover, access, integrate, and analyze biological data, and to encourage the international life science community to adopt standardized file formats, metadata, vocabularies, identifiers. In particular, in the last 2 or 3 years, there have been a number of commissioned services, and these are focused activities within the Interoperability Platform. In particular, the Platform Knowledge Hub, and also aligning the Fair Service Architecture Framework with the data platform, the communities I just mentioned, and also other Elixir projects. The Interoperability Platform has 3 executive committee members. So that's Chris Evelo from the Netherlands, Susanna Santasansone from the UK, and Tony Burdett from EMBL EBI. And I'm also supported within that by Claire Gard as Science Officer within the Elixir Hub in the tech team. And so one of the pieces of work that's done with the interoperability platform is around the concept of interoperability stories. So this is trying to understand interoperability from the perspective of users, both developers and end users, in this kind of triangular structure. So thinking about the tools that are used for interoperability, the processes there, understanding how interoperable things are as in terms of their maturity, and then understanding that through collecting use cases, case studies, and ultimate deployment of those resources. And this will help to understand how these actions can benefit researchers and how they have an impact. So I'll just give one more simple example and one longer example. So the first one is we had an interoperability story around the Galaxy project. So Galaxy project is a large and multinational project on a global scale, but it's also a community within Elixir. And they presented on the huge number of different interoperability tools that they have built into their infrastructure, so that the collection of data sets allow different types of metadata associated. They allow data set to be stored in various levels of abstraction. They support many ontologies, annotation, and file types. And they also have a number of tools to convert between all of these types of both metadata and raw data as well. And this particular animation is just demonstrating the fact that they also support now research object crate export. So this is, although the complexity and a large amount of work has gone into this, it sort of represents one of the more simple examples of technical and semantic interoperability being provided by a number of tools within one ecosystem. So then a slightly longer example is around intrinsically disordered proteins. So this story is around a particular type of protein that exists in the life science in understanding something they're ubiquitous and functionally important, and they make up around a third of the human proteome. So they're very important both from an understanding basic research, but also from a biochemical and translational perspective. And they have a number of different interaction modules. So they're a huge area of scientific research. But as they are quite challenging as proteins, their research spans a number of experimental fields. So in the Venn diagram in the bottom right, things like structure are studied, their proteomics, their function, the genetics, and their interactomes as well. So all of these areas have their own experimental methods and fields and so on. So trying to collate and gather data for this particular research area can be quite a challenge. And one of the ways this is being tackled is through the use of a thing called bioschemas. So bioschemas is a community format originally spawned out of Elixir to mark up data in relation to proteins. So in this example here, you can gather the taxon where the protein comes from, the sequence of the protein, the annotation of the sequence range, specifications, also a number of metadata from the schema.org schema definitions around scholarly article, which data set it came from, the property value, defined terms, and so on. And you can see here all the interconnectedness of this markup. And this provides a very powerful tool when it comes to actually gathering the data together. So an example of this would be the consolidation of concepts. So here we have two protein databases in terms of information about proteins, so DisProt and MobiDB. And they both list a particular protein and have different sets of data about that same protein. So if I want to gather the information about the same protein from two resources, using the schema markup allows me to do that because the concepts are defined in a way that overlaps and connects, so I can understand that this same protein is the same for both resources and can collate the data together. So visually, in this particular use case, this interoperability story, there were three databases targeted. And they used this bioschemas markup extraction and scraper tool to mine these three databases automatically without the need for custom APIs, and using the concept merging I just explained to actually combine all of the protein data about intrinsically disordered proteins from these three resources into a single knowledge graph. And then the end result from this is to have an IDP knowledge graph. And this means that all of those databases can now be queryable in a single front end for the user. And this simplifies in terms of scientific research, that if I want to find information about these disordered proteins, I can do so using either automated queries through Sparkle or through this user interface presented here, and then have information about annotation and protein information and so on from those three databases, but presented in a single format by using bioschemas on each of those pages allows me to generate this in an automatic fashion. But all of this depends on having these formats and these resources. So trying to generate knowledge graphs without things like bioschemas, and also fair sharing as well. So fair sharing is another thing within the Elixir family, and it allows a rich description of these databases, such as the ones I just mentioned, and recording their content types, access conditions, maintainers, organizers, and also the standards used within those databases. And it has a description of many or most of Elixir and EOSC Life databases and standards already. So combined with bioschemas key metadata, as I explained, as a standard for defining and describing data sets, it really makes it much easier to gather data across a large number of different repositories and databases that way. And then fair sharing as well, and a number of other resources in particular. So Elixir has what it calls its recommended interoperability resources. So these are sort of the greatest hits within the Elixir family in terms of those that are reviewed by peers and also an Elixir evaluation panel. So they undergo a rigorous review process, and they really have to be resources that facilitate interoperability and reusability of life science data. So really supporting that fairness or verification of data. And they can provide things like connections between data resources, or expose metadata, or create infrastructure that connect data collections, or support the delivery of FAIR principles in some way. And we're currently undergoing the 2023 process for allocating new RIR resources to this list, based on peer review and external evaluation. I'm not long into the discussion, but I've already mentioned a huge number of resources, and the RIRs are one of the ways to try and figure out which of the ones that are either most important or most relevant. But you can imagine this is quite a short list compared to what's available. So in the current program, which is wrapping up, was the Elixir Interoperability Platform Fair Service Framework. So you can see here there's a huge number of different registries, services, standards, resources, collaborations, consortiums, and groups. And Elixir is connected, and the community within Elixir is connected to all of these in some fashion, and trying to kind of get a handle on how these interoperate and how they connect and how we can combine these as for the user's experience is definitely a challenge we're looking towards. And an example here is to think of starting to harmonize and centralize things around an Elixir Fair RDM knowledge ecosystem. So two examples picked out here is the RDM kit and Fair Cookbook. And these really connect and define things around the registries, such as Fair Sharing, I've already mentioned, the Elixir BioTools for analytical tools, Workflow Hub for defining bioinformatics workflows. We have RDM tools around the Data Stewardship Wizard, BridgeDB, and Ontology Lookup Service. Repositories, such as the Elixir Core Data Resources, which I mentioned in the Data Platform webinar last month. And then also a number of RDM platforms, things like ErdmSeek, Mulgenus, Intermine, and Isotools. And then also then the training that goes with all of these resources and the communities within Elixir who will ultimately benefit from having all of these resources. So I'll give a short two-slide intro onto RDM Kit around what the RDM Kit is. So this was born out of the Elixir Converge project, and it's a guidance on research data management landscape. So trying to get a handle on where to start and where to end up with research data management. It's a web-based toolkit, and it's for the bioscience community and by the bioscience community. So it has an active group of contributors, and it's structured around the life cycle for research data management, starting with your plan, your collection, processes, analysis, preservation of data, sharing of data, and reuse. And the pages are interconnected both within the RDM kit, but also to a number of Elixir resources, as I mentioned earlier as well. And the other resource within the ecosystem is the Fair Cookbook. So this is an open and live resource for life science recipes, as they're called, within the Fair Cookbook. And this really allows a more structured recipe-based approach to verification of data. So trying to produce step-by-step approaches, starting with a particular question or challenge, how to verify, and then providing a defined recipe. And this is something was recently published. It's been around for a while, but it's now published in Nature Scientific Data. It's also been adopted internationally. So a number of other groups beyond Elixir, such as Pistoia Alliance and NIH, have adopted the Fair Cookbook and are contributing there as well. And this was funded by the Fair Plus project in parallel with Elixir. The recipes within Fair Cookbook are citable, credited, and linked to other resources. So things like W3ID, or ORCID, and the credit attribution ontology are all built into Fair Cookbook, allowing traceability of everyone who contributes. And the recipes themselves have a number of structured components as well. So the ingredients, the process, and the conclusions. So you kind of know how far along the recipe you are, and you can do sort of internal checks to your verification process. And then for greater learning, it also includes coverage and learning objectives. So this helps you to keep track of how you're progressing within the Fair Cookbook recipes, and then also to discover open source technologies, tools, services, and also find out the required skills. So if there are issues or gaps in your knowledge, you can figure out where they are and work to fill them with the resources there. So yeah, so I used RDM Kit and Fair Cookbook as the kind of central examples in bringing this together. But really, we want to work forward to thinking about how these two resources connect with all of the other ones within the Elixir family, in terms of registries, repositories, RDM tools, communities, and platforms, and so on. So an example might be for starting with RDM Kit. So you're looking into identifiers and which type of identifiers you could use, or which you might use or should use. And then having links to Fair Sharing, which tracks a number of standards and identifier types as well. So the identifier schema. You could have a recipe within Fair Cookbook, which references identifiers, and then you could learn more about it into RDM Kit and back to Fair Sharing. The FAIR Toolkit, which is more industry-focused resource as well, can refer back to FAIR Cookbook. And then also the more information link outs within a number of these resources can link out to other resources such as the Data Stewardship Wizard, which is a structured question-based approach to understanding where to start with data stewardship. So this is an example of how these different resources can be connected. But we can definitely do better in terms of improving the connectedness of this. And this is an objective of the Elixir interoperability platform for the next 5-year program within Elixir. So thinking of all of these useful resources, but how do we make the cake a whole and provide the user with a centralized place to use them. And we've made some progress already, which is good. So if you go to the Elixir website, and I've linked on the last slide as well, but it's now listed directly on the homepage. So we have a number of what we offer: guidelines, web portals, full lists of resources, RDM. So you'll find RDM Kit and FAIR Cookbook, and also Data Stewardship Wizard listed on the homepage. The page is directly linked from the homepage as well. So all of the resources are visible there, but it's trying to understand how, once you choose an entry point, how you can make sure you find everything you need within that. And then thinking to the future, in terms of the interoperability platform then, so really the 3 Ps. So starting with products, so a portfolio of endorsed services, standards, and ontologies. So thinking about those actual tools one would use to interoperate data and to reuse data and verify data. And then understanding the processes that you would use those products in. So this is, again, similar to the interoperability stories I described, and then converging communities around those verification frameworks. And ultimately having a set of best practices and a network of RDM and technical experts, and then outreach, dissemination, and training. So making sure that the things we learn are shared with the broader community so they can benefit and have maximum impact. And then just to end on how you can get engaged with the interoperability platform. So the interoperability platform within Elixir has a large overlap with many other projects: the Ask Life, the FAIR Plus project, Elixir Converge I mentioned, also the Research Data Alliance, and so on. So there's a lot of various connection points. If people are already involved with those, they can be great entry points. And also then sort of using Elixir resources, all of them, and in particular those for verification and recommended interoperability resources as well. And then also provide us with feedback. So we're always welcome to any questions, queries, challenges with those resources or any other Elixir resources. And I've listed here the Exco and Hub support team that you can reach out to. And I've dropped there the link to the What We Offer portals as well. So as a starting point to understand more about what's offered through Elixir and the interoperability platform as well. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are.